Hey y'all, it's Kim from KGD Creative. If you remember, a few days ago, Maymay posted a video on some mystery cards using a Mintay paper pack. I had a Mintay paper pack sitting on my desk, not sure what to do with it. So boom, mystery cards from Mintay Florabella paper pack. I think these turned out really well and can be used for many different occasions. So I started out first by taking the cover out of the paper pack and fussy cutting all of the images off of the back. Then I took this beautiful piece with this large estate home on it and decided to do my cutting on it, my mystery cutting. So first I'm going to cut off the branding strip to make it a true 12 by 12 sheet of paper. And I've got it turned face down. Now I'm going to cut this 12 by 12 sheet down to 6 card fronts that will measure 5 1/4 by 4. I'm going to flip the page over only to make sure where I'm going to make my second cut going horizontally across that page. I don't want to cut off anything that's going to make the card fronts better. So here I'm going to make I'm going to make one cut at 5 1/4, and then I'm going to take it out and make sure again that I'm cutting where I want to cut, and I'm going to cut again at 5 1/4. And then that one little strip there is just a piece of scrap that we'll have left over. So now I'm going to cut all these down to 4 inches. So we'll end up with 6 card fronts cut 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to keep them turned face down so that once I start my card fronts, I don't know what's coming until I flip it over. And I've got 6 card bases that are cut 5 1/2 by 8 1/4, 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. I've pulled out some distress ink in Hickory Smoke so that I can ink the edges. So I'm going to ink the edges of this first card front. It's a pretty piece that cut with the horse that horse is almost in the very center of the card front. I'm just going to go around and ink the edges with that Hickory Smoke ink. So I've pulled out a couple of stamp sets of Maymays. I pulled out Sorry, and I also pulled out With Sympathy, thinking that I'm going to want more sympathy cards. Now I've got a piece of gray cardstock that kind of matches, and I've cut it down to 1 1/2 inches by 12. I'll end up cutting it the width of the card front, which is 4 1/4. I'm just going to glue that with my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue to the bottom portion of the card front. It's going to end up being about 2 1/2 inches from the bottom. And I'm going to ink the edges of it as well. With the Hickory Smoke ink, distress ink. So I'm going to adhere that down to the bottom. And from the pieces that I fussy cut, I'm going to pull out an image of a clock. I think that'll look really nice on the left-hand side there. I'm going to ink the edges of it also with the Hickory Smoke Distress ink. It's a brand new ink blending pad, so I have to really get it loaded up to start with to have enough ink to ink the edges. I'm going to use the Scotch double-sided foam mounting tape and pop up that little clock on our card front to give it a little dimension. On all of the cards that I'm making today, I made 6, and on all of the cards I pop up the fussy cutting pieces with foam tape. Everything else is glued directly to the card. And this particular card is the only one that I'm going to show you in real time. The other 5 cards I'm going to speed up the video so that the video doesn't last for hours. Okay, now's where I'm going to take my Barely Art Precision craft glue and glue the gray strip to the bottom portion of my card. It's about 2.5 inches from the bottom of the card. Get my craft pick and take off the backers from my foam tape. And adhere that down to the card front over on the left side of the gray strip that I have. I'm going to take the sentiment Sorry from the Sorry stamp set. I stamped it on a piece of white and was going to put it on the card front. I didn't like that. So I ended up just stamping it directly to the gray strip on the card front. I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. It really is my favorite black ink. That gray cardstock that I'm using is textured, and the mistake I made, I should have flipped it over and used the more smooth side, because you'll see when I lift up I'm missing some areas. But I have an ink, I have a marker that has Memento black ink in it, and so I just take that and kind of color in the missing spots. Right now I'm adhering the card front to the card base, one of the card bases that I had. And now you see me covering up my boo-boos with my black Memento marker. I just very carefully colored in the spots that I missed. And you would have thought that I would have learned to use the smoother side of the gray cardstock, but later on in the video I do the same thing and have to use my ink pen, my marker to fix it. So I've turned over to the next card front, and I've taken my 2" by 12" piece of gray cardstock, and I'm just using an edge punch that I have to run across the edge of it. I'm going to cut down a piece that's 4 1/4, that measures 4 1/4 wide, and I'm going to glue it straight to the card front toward the bottom. And I'm just using my Tim Holtz shears to trim that off. I'm going to take a stamp set, the With Sympathy stamp set, and stamp Thinking of You in the center portion of that gray card strip. And there you see me coloring in the spots that I missed. I pulled a hat image from the fussy cut pieces and adhered it to the front of the card using Scotch foam tape. And now you see me adhering the card front to a card base. That's card number 2. Card number 3, I'm going to ink the edges of the card front with our Hickory Smoke ink. I'm going to take that piece that I edge punched, the gray piece, and I'm going to ink the edges of it with the Hickory Smoke ink, and adhere it to the front of the card on the left side. I'm going to touch up my inking on the edges to make sure everything is inked. Now I'm going to take a little piece of ribbon. It's hard to see on camera, but it's a peachy colored ribbon that matches really well with the paper pack. And I'm just going to use some dot runner on the back to glue that ribbon to the back of the card. I'm going to take some, it's the image of cowboy boots from our fussy cut pieces, ink the edges, and adhere it to the bottom left corner of our card front with the Scotch double-sided foam mounting tape. Now I'm going to take a piece of the ribbon and tie a little bow, and using a glue dot I'm going to adhere it to the card front just above where the cowboy boots are, or cowgirl boots. And I fiddle with that bow and fiddle with the bow till I get it somewhat like I want it. And then I fiddle with it again and trim the edges. And then I'm going to adhere that card front to a card base. Now on to our next card. Just going through the fussy cut pieces, trying to find exactly what I want. I found the image of that large clock and that suitcase, and then I find the image of that hanging lamp that I like. I'm going to ink the edges. I've also brought in a little metal piece, a little piece that I have. I think it was in a pack that I got from Hobby Lobby. It's a little Tim Holtz pack. It has a little sentiment on it. I decided to use it. I put the clock away and pulled that hat out. I think the hat will look really cute. Kind of catty corner there on the suitcase. I'm going to take some of that same ribbon that I used on the last card and thread through that metal piece. And I'm going to adhere it to the card front much the same as I did the other ribbon. I'm going to use the glue dot runner and adhere it to the back of the card front. It's not quite staying in place like I want it to, so I take a glue dot and try to get it down in behind it so it will stay down and lie flat. That works pretty good. So I'm going to adhere the fussy cut pieces using the Scotch double-sided foam mounting tape. I'll adhere the hanging lamp image. I think that's what that is. I'm not really sure, to be honest, but it looks kind of like a hanging lamp from the 70s. I'm gonna adhere it to the top left corner, and then I'm going to adhere the suitcase to the bottom right corner. And then the hat I'm going to adhere just kind of at an angle on the edge of that suitcase. Then I'm going to adhere that card front to the front of a card base. On to card number 5. I've never done this before. I've seen it done, so I thought, well, let's try to distress the edges of this. And I guess it turned out okay. It's not really my style, you know, but I think it looks good. I ink the edges, and then I pull out one of the fussy cut pieces. It looks like an invitation in an envelope, and I ink the edges of it and adhere it to the card front using the Scotch double-sided foam mounting tape. And I think it's perfect just like it is. So I adhere it to the front of a card base. Now we have card number 6. I do like the images that are on this last card base. So I want it to be fairly simple. I take part of that 1.5 inch gray cardstock and stamp Thinking of You from the With Sympathy stamp set and adhere it at the top of the card with the sentiment off to the right. And so I look through trying to find some image to go. I want an image to go on the left side down there. So I find this flower and I think it's really pretty. So I adhere it to the card front using the foam mounting tape, and then I adhere the card front to the card base. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I hope you enjoyed the cards that I made using the Mintay Florabella paper pack. The cards were made as part of Maymay Made It Pictorial design team. We're starting a new period here with new designers, and I cannot wait for you to meet the new designers. I can't wait to work with the new designers. I know they're going to be amazing. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd be honored if you would. And while you're at it, hit that little bell icon so that you can be notified each time I upload a new video. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.